Hi, and welcome back to the Positive Prepper. The lighting on this video is a little bit different because we have a new puppy, and if I try to set my light up, I'm afraid his over ambition is going to make it fall. So I do not have my normal lighting set up today, so bear with me. This is not going to be an easy topic to talk about, but I promised that I would. And I'm basically going to give you 4 things that you need to either begin planning or have in place already if you don't, to increase your chances of surviving a nuclear war. There's really no way to make this a positive thing other than to say the obvious, which is the more prepared you are, the better chance of survival you have. And so I guess that's kind of the point of this, but it gives you an idea of some of the things to consider. Now, why are we even talking about this? So put aside all of the rumors of war and wars that are going on around the world globally. We know that there are several countries with the capabilities of starting and continuing some kind of a nuclear war. But most people fall under 2 different false beliefs, and I want to cover these really briefly. The first false belief is that nuclear war would never happen because it's a no-win game. And I think I maybe used to be one of those that thought that way, that there's no way that anybody would be that crazy to start a nuclear war, especially because in a war situation, it's usually because the warring, how do I say that? The one that is creating the war, it's because they want the land, they want the territory. So, for example, with Russia and Ukraine, Russia wants the territory of Ukraine to be back part of Russia. Okay, so they wouldn't want to destroy the land, right, with the nuclear bombs, the devastation that it would cause, the millions of lives that would be lost and dead and burning, and all of the most horrific pictures you can think of. They wouldn't want that because not only would the war cost them a lot, but the cleanup would also cost a lot and take a lot of resources, time, energy, and money. But that doesn't mean that it would never happen. If it was never going to happen, then why do so many governments and people worry about it and make the preparations to survive it, such as putting us in blast bunkers and the like? If there was no reason to even think that it was a possibility, none of these things would be happening across the world, and have been for a very, very long time. The second false belief is that if a nuclear war, and I'm talking a global nuclear war, happened, that would be the end of mankind. That would be that would be the end of us. And what I want to say to that again is that, well, again, there'd be no reason to worry, right? And there would be no reason to do any of the preparations for survival. So as much as we don't want to believe that it's a possibility, it's always a real possibility. And it really doesn't matter where you live, unless you're at the South or North Pole. Everyone in that particular case is going to be greatly impacted. And it's true that many millions would die. Absolutely. You can't get around that. But many millions would also most likely survive. And possibly end up fighting over some of the last easy resources. But most people in that situation, if they've survived it, have done what they needed to prepare for it. And so that increases the chances of survival, and it decreases the need to go out and find alternative resources, at least within the short term. Okay? So the 4 things that you can do, that if you haven't started these things already, these are some things that you need to keep in mind and think about as far as your prepping goes. So the first one is to decide whether to bug out or bunker in. You don't want to be out in the exposed air trying to figure out what you're going to do, right? You need to have that plan. And that's really, excuse me, with any SHTF. You want to make sure that you have your plan in place, know if you're going to bug out or bunker in, and what would be the safest thing for you, especially in this situation of a nuclear war. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, your priorities during or, before or just after a nuclear strike, your priorities are shelter, water, and food. Okay? Water is especially essential because water will become contaminated quite easily, even if it's the underground streams or your artesian wells, things like that. They can become contaminated relatively easy. And so anything that you have in your location, whether you're bugging out or bunkering in, anything that holds water is going to be a very necessary thing for your survival. So this includes things like your bathtub, your washing machine. Don't forget your kiddie pools, your water tank. Now, most washing machines, if they're the top load ones, you can actually fill those with water. You're not going to be able to do that with a side load one. Something to keep in mind. But you can never have, especially in this situation, too much water stored. Okay? So within that really short amount of time, especially if we don't know what's coming, at that point you are going to want to fill every possible thing you have with water before it becomes contaminated. The second one is, the third one is having that protection from the radiation. Radiation can pretty much seep in anywhere, whether it's through your roofs, your windows, your doors. The good news is that it goes fairly quickly from fatal within 1 hour of exposure to 2 days. The best way to describe this is, well, let me get to that in a second. So it loses its intensity pretty quickly. Okay, let's just start with that part. The greatest way to survive from that radiation fallout is to have as much mass between you and the outside air as possible. Okay, so, if you're in a basement, or you have a blast bunker, like an underground bunker, your bunkers are most likely going to have the necessary filtering system, right, to filter out the air so that you're breathing good air. But a lot of us can't afford those kind of things in our yards. And so let's say that you're in a single level home and you do not have a basement. So the best way to protect yourself at that point is to make yourself a room, is probably the best way to say it, with a really heavy table or really heavy door. Create a space that you are completely covered in, okay? And you need to pile on this thing, you know, things like books and wood and bricks and sandbags. Put filing cabinets around you, can also protect you, okay? Because the walls of your home are not going to be good enough to stop that. So you need to create as much mass as you can, using your appliances. And then, as I said, using file cabinets, heavy wood, heavy doors, heavy tables, things like that, that you can create this little place that you will be more protected from that radiation. All of that can reduce your exposure. And it can go pretty much from 500 Roentgens per hour down to 5 Roentgens per hour. So it's super, it's a great way to really reduce the amount of radiation that you're exposed to. Okay, now obviously, this really depends on where the blast occurs. I'm basically in this video talking about if you are outside that blast zone, but you are still in that nuclear fallout area. This is the area that I'm talking about. But even then, so the next one is if you are close to the blast, so if you are closer to that blast, the best thing that you can do at that exact moment is to duck and cover. Cover your head, right? Lay flat on the ground. This reduces your chance of being hit by debris, and it also makes yourself smaller, flatter on the ground. Okay? This might increase your chance of survivability if you are with more closer to that blast zone. But also, again, being in a location or being able to immediately get to a location that has that mass between you and the outside is really going to make a difference. You want to make sure that all of your food are in very strongly sealed containers so that the contaminants can't get down inside your food. So your canned foods are still going to be good. You just have to wash them off. You have to make sure that none of that contaminant, that radioactive contaminant, gets inside your food, right? Same with your water. You're going to want to make sure that anything that you put water in, so for example, if you've got your bathtub filled, it might not be a bad idea to take a tarp and some duct tape and cover that bathtub, just to keep as much contaminant out of it as you can. You might want to have N95 masks and ponchos, just to keep that radioactive stuff from going in your lungs, but also from getting directly onto your skin. If you are exposed to it and you have stuff falling on you, you are going to want to have some kind of a contamination booth outside of your home or building, wherever it is that you're bunkering in at. Something that you can spray yourself off with bleach or water or whatever and get that contaminant off. You're going to want to strip that poncho, take that mask off, and leave everything outside. And that may even include your clothes if you've not been able to be protected. Because anything that you bring in then is going to contaminate your inside area. Okay? Some of the other essential preps that you're going to want to have are potassium iodide or potassium iodate. This protects your thyroid from cancer, which is what that radiation poisoning basically does. You can buy potassium iodide USP grade. And this allows you to make the potassium iodide, um, the straight potassium iodide. But when you order it, you have to make sure that it's the USP grade. Okay. And usually when you do that, they tell you what the dosage is, because it really varies based on age, and I believe based on health. So if you already have some underlying conditions, you are really going to want to pay attention to what the dosage requirements would be. And then the last one is to secure your location. So not only do you want to build up this mass protective structure, right? You want to make sure that you turn off all your utilities, seal off any points of entry, such as your windows, your doors, your roof vents, anything like that. Get some plastic, get some duct tape, very heavy plastic, and seal all of that off. Okay? It's a lot of information. What we did was we put together a binder, surviving a nuclear war. And then this is all the information we need to survive, from taking shelter to first aid. So we put this in a 3-ring binder so that there's a section right here that's tabbed. So if it were to happen at a time when nobody was expecting it, like just maybe the power grid was down, the radios, TVs, cell phones were all down, and all of a sudden we're getting nuclear blasts. Okay? It's in paper form, so that, because you're not going to be able to Google any information, right? Oh my gosh, we just got hit by nuclear war, now what do I do? You need to have it all in a printed book somehow, whether it's creating your own, or go out and buy a book or 2 or 3 or 4, right? Because there's a lot of different ideas out there. But make that accessible to your mag group, if you have a mag group, so that whoever it is that's there getting things ready and prepared can easily go grab that book and get done what needs to be done. So hopefully this at least gives you a place to start. I felt like these were some of the priorities that you're going to want to keep in mind when preparing for a nuclear war. And also some things that you can do if we're caught off guard and it just happens out of the blue, that first nuke strike. So hopefully this has helped. I know that it's not something that's easy to talk about, because I think all of us, even those of us that do prepare for this, there's that little piece in the back of our heads that are like, oh, okay, well, this is never going to happen. But the reality is, with the amount of nuclear weapons that are out there, the nuclear capabilities, and in some cases the lack of defense against those capabilities, nuclear war can be a very real possibility. And the sooner we accept that and begin preparing for it, the better off that we're going to be, and the higher our chances of survival will be. So I hope this has helped. Please hit that notification bell, like and subscribe. And as dark and scary and chaotic as everything is, just keep on keeping on. God bless.